Hey, what's up? It's been a bit, hasn't it? Sorry for how long this part is taking me to upload. I've been having a bit of personal stuff to deal with, and while recording the start to the 400 days video, I became a bit burnt out of Project Zomboid and decided to take a break in between recording sessions. Everything's good on my end. A bit of a life update. I had to take an intersession semester for college, and it worked out in the long run because I've been accepted into my software program I wanted to take since last year. I'm currently working on getting a place to stay as I'm moving a whopping 7 hours away from the town where I'm staying in right now, so it's going to be a bit of a shock as I've never been to a city since I was 11 years old. Okay, but with that out of the way, plugs in the description down below. Predz channel, his playlists of 1,000 Day series, his Twitter, all that stuff is in the description down below. Also, if you like the series so far, make sure to subscribe to see more, or if you're interested in my Let's Plays. And leave a comment of your favorite part of this episode so far. Alright, let's get into the video. So while recording this section, I've added a few more mods to, I don't really know, add a few interesting things into the game. Nothing too big or anything. I ended up downloading the Darumba van mod from the Autostar Tuners pack, Norse backpack attachments, so I can throw attachment slots on vanilla and modded backpacks from Authentic Z and British Armor mods. And lastly, Yaki's clothing mod, where you can make homemade clothing, but we'll get into the last mod later on. As always, I survived 400 days in Project Zomboid, and here's how it went. Day 301. After waking up in the house I made for the last time, I decided to get on the road. I left the deed to my base and got in the Mustang and hit the road. Remember, I only took what I could carry in the Mustang to my next location for an added challenge. I had a bit of a distance to cover, and using one car, a sports car at that, would help me get from Muldraugh to my next destination way quicker than towing either a trailer or a second car. I navigated the car wreck from previously, and there was one a bit further away that I wasn't unaware of, but other than that, everything went smoothly. At 9:30 a.m., I arrived at the military checkpoint right outside of Louisville, and had to move some barricades blocking the way in order to drive into town. The problem with that was the amount of zombies I would need to clear in order to progress. At one point, I was blocked by a locked fence gate, and then realized I forgot to bring a sledgehammer with me, so I had to think of another solution to get inside. After a few in-game hours, I managed to get to the military checkpoint and onto my next base location. Now, before I proceed with the video and shit, I just want to say one thing. I have never played in Louisville yet, and the only thing I know about Louisville is 1. It's the biggest city in Project Zomboid. 2. It's also the most infested location in Project Zomboid. 3. I know a few base videos on YouTube in Louisville. And lastly, I know a bit about the city based on Predz Part 3 to 4 of his 1,000 Day series. So what I know next about the city would be next to nothing after that. I arrived at 2:30 p.m. to my next base location, the mansion on the west side of Louisville with the large garage. I want to base up here for a few reasons, mainly because there's a lake in the backyard, the space is pretty decent, there's also a garage which I can use to work on my cars, and also there really wasn't too much work into fortifying the entry points. So after clearing the place out and clearing some of the nearby zombies out, I begin unpacking my stuff before turning in for the night.
Hey, what's the matter between you two?
There's a language barrier there.
What do you mean there's a language barrier? He's speaking English, you dick.
I know, but he's from Texas.
Day 302. I cleared a few groups in the backyard and worked on constructing walls to fortify my base. There's a couple gaps in the walls behind the house, so I had to finish walling them up using the same wall trick I've always done, making level 1 walls and upgrading them to 2 to 3 to add more health to the wall. Then I had to break down some of the neighborhood doors to get hinges and doorknobs so I could build a double door at the end of the driveway to fully secure the base. Now, being in my new base, there's a few things I wanted to get done as soon as possible. First was to get the power running through the base. That was my current main goal. I wasn't really worried about food or water since there's a lake in the backyard, and also I got like a bunch of MREs with me. I could also use a generator, but I was a little worried about using a generator because, one, I didn't really have any need to using a generator so early on, and it could also attract hidden zombies nearby in the woods. So I didn't want to risk that until I was absolutely certain my base was clear, and I also had a reason to power out my base. So using the generator, I just threw that idea in the back burner. Basically, I need to make a battery bank. I took some batteries and solar panels with me from Muldrout, so all I needed to do was build a battery bank. In the meantime, I decided to explore the city. Zombies are literally at every corner, and I was putting the katanas I crafted back on day 80 whatever to good use. I basically spent the entire day at the horse racetrack's parking lot, clearing zombies and looking for a disposable car I can utilize instead of risking the Mustang on loon trips. I found one, and I just head back home for the day. Day 303. Today I went for a looting run. I found a convenience store that had some snacks inside. I also found a truck that I could hotwire, making it car number 2 I can utilize. I did find this one car with a very interesting name.
Hi, welcome to Chili's.
But to top it off, it was in pretty good condition. I ended up driving around town trying to find a warehouse or two so I could scavenge more batteries and come across an inverter and some parts to create a battery bank. I did end up coming across an inverter, which was one of the parts needed, and then I found a 400 amp battery before crashing upstairs since it became late during my looting run. Day 3 or 4. I got home by 12 and packed up my loot. I didn't have a proper storage place for my weapons, so they just sat in a pile in the hallway. I ended up going for a looting run to the neighboring homes and finally crafted a battery bank, which I threw a few batteries in, and I finally had power running through the base. Unfortunately, it wouldn't supply power to the garage, so I need to build another battery bank if I want to get power into the garage. Day 3 or 5. I geared up and drove to the military checkpoint at the edge of town. I looted the stockpiles for some ammo and cleared out the place. I ended up heading east towards these commercial buildings and decided to check them out for batteries and such. I did find some materials, batteries and metal, but it ended up being an entire day affair, so I ended up being forced to sleep in this one truck, so I can at least have some safety while asleep. Day 306. I grabbed the crowbar and began taking as many lockers as I could find / carry at the time. I loaded the car off crates as well and began towing home in Humvee.
I want to die.
Back home, I went ahead and began organizing my weapons. I decided to make the second bedroom across from mine and turn to the weapon armory. So I decided to disassemble everything inside and place the lockers and military crates inside and had a functional weapon armory. Day 307, the morning was spent doing the same thing as last night. Place weapons in the armory. Fuck, this whole day was spent organized in place. I placed the cars, well, the Mustang and Humvee, in the garage and wanted to make the garage hold the mechanical stuff and electrical items too, while the house garage would have construction supplies. Other than that, nothing else interesting happened today. Let's move on. Day 308, I drove back to the commercial buildings by the army checkpoint, gathering more metal sheets and finding more solar supplies for the base. The katanas were really coming in clutch since they were a one-shot kill this time, and they would dispatch a rather large horde within seconds. Other than that, I just went around the place, killing zombies and looting. Not much else to throw in today. Day 309 was more exploring. I went south of my position and found something I thought was a hotel or a dormitory. Maybe it might be an apartment building, I don't know. It was infested, but had a good amount of loot. And at the end of the day, I ended up driving home in a white muscle car, trading out the truck in the meantime. Day 310, I began exploring the neighborhood across from my base to look for more cars to use. I found a blue Chevy Primer that I wanted to use. So I ended up hot wiring it and decided to take it for a joyride. Unfortunately, I won't be driving this thing for long because well, that's great. Now, I learned from my mistake from fracturing my arm last episode, so I had splints on hand in the meantime to heal this up. But I also begin to worry. I had the slow healer trait, which makes the heal rate of injuries take much longer to heal. Literally no shit. And I broke legs before with this trait in the past, which always ended up with me taking almost an entire month to heal up a broken leg. So I wasn't looking too excited to be spending the next 30 days or so held up at the base doing nothing but farming, fishing, and probably some other skills I can grind at home. So at this point, you could just say things can get worse, right? Yeah, my car ended up stalling, forcing me to retreat back home, limping on a broken leg, with hordes right on my ass. I got away, of course, but this was an intense situation I got myself into. Eventually, I found a second car to use, and after hot wiring it, I drove home, prepared myself for the month-long isolation. Day 311, I cleared out the trees in the backyard for room to make it for a farm. After that, I decided to get drunk off some Weiser's whiskey and spearfish while shit-faced until I passed out. Day 312, I had the materials to make a second battery bank for the garage. Also, while typing this, I realized that making one for the garage was pretty much pointless. But it was kind of nice to be doing mechanical things at night while the place was lit up. The rest of the day was spent spearfishing and patching my clothes. Day 313 was spent spearfishing, then getting drunk to help pass the days by. Day 314, I got bored being stuck at home, so I got my car, loaded up the AKM, and began doing drive-bys Soviet style. Day 315, I smoked some weed I brought from Mojo and worked on fixing the Humvee, then passing it from being too high. Day 316, so to my surprise, my leg fracture actually fully healed up. So to celebrate, I went on a looting run. I had the entirety of Louisville to explore, and I wanted to see what this place had in store for me. I ended up in the parking lot of a news station and began clearing towards the parking lot. I did find an army bus from the Other Star mod pack, and it was in pretty good condition, so I broke in, hotwired it, and wanted to bring it back home. I dropped off at home and I went back to the news station and ended up leveling light-footed while clearing a few more zombies in the parking lot. I found a few items inside the news station, and the place was an interesting place to explore. I can imagine the news broadcasts taking place here, talking about the Nox infection before it took over the world. And to end it off, I leveled up electricity to level 6 by taking out the security panels. Day 317, I began working on installing protection armor onto the army bus. I got some window protection and a bumper on before setting down another looting room for metal. I went back to the commercial buildings nearby the army checkpoint, and I ended up grabbing a bunch of weapons, and then I decided to follow the train tracks. Then I tried going back to my car, where I went John Wick on the hordes of zombies with my AK. Does he even use an AK in his John Wick movies? I don't know, I've only seen the first one. I ended up at the Gigamart where I found a spare green Mustang in good condition and a truck nearby and looted the Gigamart. These Gigamarts usually have just about everything inside. Food, weapons, materials. I even ended up taking a couple of stuffies, including the rare Spiffo stuffy, which I decided would become my good luck charm in the future. Day 318, I finished making the second battery bank for the garage and got working power in it now. That took me until the afternoon, so to compensate for that, I went back to the dealership and took home the Chili's car. Day 319, I went back to the army checkpoint to grab more crates and lockers to put into the armory. Eventually, I wandered down the east road and ended up at the Rail, Freight, and Logistics building. After checking the place out, I went back to the car to drop off my stuff. Then I broke into the guard towers at the checkpoint and took what I wanted from them and then went home. Day 320 was another day of exploration. I ended up at the fire station and basically went to town with my honey badger. I took him a water cooler and installed in the base and spent the rest of the day doing nothing but look out into the distance. Day 321. This morning I took a backpack from Predz armor mod and began adding attachments to the bags. I added a mod that added attachments to both vanilla and modded bags so I can throw things onto them to add a big character or flair to them. After getting all the attachments as I could on the bags, I ended up going on another looting run in the neighborhood where I finally maxed out my axe skill. At this time, this will probably be the last time I would use axe as a weapon, so I can now start focusing on maxing out the other weapon skills besides archery. Fuck archery. Never should install that mod. Day 322. I went out and explored the other houses on the lakeside, and then I took the office room of the base and disassembled everything inside. My plans for this room was to turn it into a giant freezer room, but I will be working on that for another day. Day 323. My car stalled out and I was forced to dip out while fending off a horde using a hammer. I ended up wandering around the entire city with no focus on where I wanted to go. Every turn in Louisville, there was something cool to check out and hordes to take on. Eventually, I settled on looting a storage lot where I would end up spending the night at. Day 324. I dipped the fuck out and found a minivan in good condition. Naturally, I hotwired it and put my loot inside and drove to the armor surplus store. This place had so much shit inside, like ammo, clothes, weapons. But, when I tried to break into the armory, I found out that I needed a sledgehammer because there was a gated wall blocking it. Crap. So I left a reminder to come back with a sledgehammer in the future. I ended up looting another storage lot and found a badminton and thought it'd be funny to take on the hordes for the shits and giggles.
I just want you to know, you guys are the best darn badminton players I've had the pleasure of coaching. You're beacons of freedom. Go show the Olympic Committee we deserve a shot. Show them it's not badminton, it's goodminton. Heck, it's greatminton. Now get out there and win one for the flipper.
By the way, if any of you guys have never seen Total Drama, you haven't had a great childhood. Day 325, I grabbed a sledgehammer from base and went back to the army surplus store and broke into the weapons armory, and I finally found it. The Sega 12. Well, the short version, but either way, it's a Sega 12 nonetheless. Day 326. Day of recording this session, I found out from my grandfather that I'm part Irish, Russian, and German. Cool. So to get into my German and Russian side, I decided to take a Mosin Nagant and a Glock 34 and went on a shooting spree near a gas station I wanted to set up as a future outpost. Only problem was it drew in way too many zombies and it was too much for me to handle with both the weapons I had available. I was forced to retreat back to base and would come back later with better firepower. Day 327, I went back to the gas station with the Sega and went to work clearing the area. Note, I held off using suppressors for this 100 days, so using an unsuppressed shotgun was basically breaking the conveyor belt to my location. I eventually cleared the area out, so I drove to warehouses and other interesting buildings before calling it a night. Day 328, I brought home another Jeep and read the next volume of Electricity since I found that book yesterday. Upon reading it, I read the final volume of Aiming for the remainder of the day. Day 329. Early morning I wrapped up volume 5 Aiming and worked on making armor for the bear bus and the Jeep. At night I made some stairs to plumb the water to the kitchen so I saved time instead of boiling river water from the backyard. So, let's talk about my current skills. So currently I maxed about 9 out of 27 vanilla skills. 29 including the lockpicking and archery mod, but they were my focus on maxing out for this playthrough. So I'm sitting here wondering which skills would be easy to level up and which ones would take literal days to grind up. Of course, I had some skill books to level up some of the other skills, and up until the early 200 days video, I had experience gain set to 1.5, which I now set to vanilla because I decided that, hey, I was getting the experience too quickly. So, looking at the skills, I'd assume I could get the weapon levels maxed out by constantly fighting hordes using, well, specific weapon type. I had a ton of katanas available, spears could be also made easily, and knives were a decent weapon for dispatching small groups. Long blunt could be worked on, but my main concern was short blunt. Right now, I'm not really finding too many weapons that will be effective under short blunt for taking on hordes. So that was a little bit concerning for now. Moving on to the agility skills, I could probably max out sneaking easily. I had an idea how to max it out, so I wasn't worried about sneak right now. My issue is nimbled and light-footed. I don't know if there's an effective way to grind them, and I actually don't know what light-footed does. Electrical was also my main concern to max out since it was so hard to gain levels, and I haven't found the Gorilla magazines to craft makeshift radios and walkie-talkies, and honestly, leveling electrical up to level 3 and onward really wouldn't help me in the long run. Once I hit level 3, I was able to make solar panels and hot wiring, and other than that, there's really no point into grinding out electrical. Seriously. Nothing is needed with electrical, with a high electrical skill. So, I don't know about that skill. I'll still try to grind it every chance I can get, but I didn't really see a point of leveling up electrical. First aid and tailoring would be hard to level up for the time being, or so I thought. I just remembered a good idea for grinding out the first aid skill and tailoring near the end of this video. Aiming and reloading wouldn't be hard to grind up next since I'm constantly using guns, and the survival skills were an issue. I kind of disliked foraging, and when I tried to forage, I just really wasn't getting lucky. Fishing takes ages to grind, even with drying out one area at a time. And, well, fishing, I guess. Trapping could be worked on, but I would need to make a large garden supply bait for the plethora of traps I need to make to effectively grind out that skill. Okay, skills aside, let's get into day 330, where I drove around and dispatched hordes using a tactical spear. Going back to my weapons skills at the time, I'd planned to max out long blade my crafted katanas and use spears as the secondary weapon of choice. I know the script is kind of sporadic, but moving on. I nearly had a run-ending event where I climbed up a stairwell and got caught in a horde of zombies. I'm thankful I didn't die here. After that whole event, I ended up dipping back home soon after that. And you know what? I was surprised I didn't get cornered and just like thrown to the ground when the zombies just started munching on my dead body. Day 331. It was raining, so I decided to make advantage of the time by planting out crops. Then went for the looting run and found a gun store. Luckily, I decided to bring the sledge with me at all times, so I was able to bust them with no problems. I ended up taking some supplies, guns, ammo, attachments, and a reloading press, and honestly I didn't really have any use for a reloading press since I have my Brita's guns, weapons, and ammo options set to around 80% plus on the mod options. I know that sounds OP, but there's literally hundreds of guns in this mod pack, so I wanted to use what looked cool and make use out of the gun pack. If you don't like it, okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, back to the video. I got home and worked on tailoring until bed. Day 332, I located a police station / prison. It ended up being completely infested, and even with loading up my Sega 12 with 9 drum mags, I'd be dealing with a lot more than I could handle as a shotgun drew and more zombies were nearby, and I ended up having to literally refill the drum mag several times while training a large horde Call of Duty style. This took up all day and I broke my katanas, which resorted to me using a Rambo knife, a baton, and a baseball bat. Eventually got into the station and started self-killing with a knife. But then, unfortunately, I underestimated how many zombies were still inside the building, so I was forced to retreat back home for the night as I became overwhelmed. Day 333, taking a break from the chaos that was yesterday, I went out to the nearby neighborhoods and disassembled TVs and stuff to level my electricity skills. Nothing too much happened other than the survivor house I broke into, which had a shit ton of weapons. And I ended up finding a boat docked behind a mansion by the lake. I don't know how to use boats with the boat mod, and I actually was surprised that I even found a boat since I thought I'd disable this mod. And also I didn't want to risk my character's life over trying to figure out how to work a boat, so I just left it be. Day 334 was spending time placing stuff around the kitchen. Of course, I accumulated a lot of food in the past month in Louisville, and honestly, looking at the places I've looted, I think I barely even made a dent in the amount of loot that is waiting for me in the city. Then I drove up to the gas stations and grabbed some freezers to store excess food from both fishing and farming. While looking for the second freezer, I made it to the bowling alley.
Nico, it's Roman. Let's go bowling.
Okay, man. We go bowling. I come to get you in the next hour.
Okay, man. I will see you soon then.
Eventually, after hours of driving, I found another gas station which had another freezer for the taking. Then while driving home, I found another survivor building. No, not a house, no. This ended up being a fucking hotel or an apartment building. This place ended up being a fucking jackpot of loot. If I wanted to search every nook and cranny inside, since there are multiple rooms that had loot inside. I ended up just looting the first floor and spent the night inside the hotel. Day 335, after looting a bit more in the hotel, I drove back home. Now before passing the gas station and wanting to check it for a freezer, which it had. So I cleaned up the area, took the freezer, headed home, dropped off my loot, and read the final volume of Sneaking to wrap up the rest of the day. Day 336, I ran into the problem that I would be facing for the rest of these 100 days. So the power died. So basically after hooking up 3 freezers, the batteries and solar panels I had couldn't provide power to last throughout every night. And the first problem was the lack of solar panels, so I ended up making a few more and placing them down. Eventually, I realized I needed more batteries installed, so that became the main focus while on looting runs. In the meantime, I wrapped up Volume 5 Stealth, meal prepped, crafted some traps, and reloaded some of my gun magazines before passing out from... yeah, that. Day 337, I drove out from the base and began setting traps to help grind out my trapping skills. After setting them up with bait, I went back home and expanded the garden with another line of crops. Also, I found out you can place a water jug inside a charcoal grill and it can boil the water regardless of the plastic container being next to an open fire. Logic. The rest of the day was spent trying to pound some levels into fishing. Day 338, after checking traps, I went on a battery hunt. I should buy more batteries from Muldrow. I did come across what Private Lime called the Amazon warehouse, which it had everything a survivor would want inside. Parts, materials, weapons, food, clothes, seeds, but no fucking batteries. Disappointed, I drove home and got level 10 cooking, making salads since my character was developing a dad bod. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I ended up maxing out cooking sometime throughout this video, but I don't know where, so I'm just gonna go ahead and just throw it in now. Day 339, I just fished all day and made spears so I can spearfish. Day 340, I broke into the bank next to the Giga Mart I looted a few weeks back. The only interesting inside was a locker full of guns and ammo. Taking what I needed, I dipped out and began clearing more hordes in another parking lot. Day 341. I geared up and drove back to the police station. Getting to the armory, I found the place was literally loaded with gear for me to take. While leaving, I ended up alerting the uncleared horde back in day 333 and worked on clearing it. Well, my wish came true in a slightly sadistic way, cause for the 10th fucking time my game crashed. I need some more. I need to get some RAM, guys. y'all know the drill at this point. I got back in, used cheat menu to correct the time, and disabled cheat menu and relog and all that stuff. The horde was cleared, but I didn't feel the satisfaction of clearing it myself. Hoping to change it, I went to the prison section looking for hordes. There wasn't many there, so I just went home. Day 342. Getting no results from my traps, I placed them a bit away from my previous area and rebaited them with fresh bait in hopes I actually get something this time. Moving on, I needed metal bars and pipes to make window protection for my bus, Humvee, and my Jeep, so I went on disassembling fences but gave up soon after when I got fuck all pipes. I would end up finding a better solution for pipes and holes later on down the line. Day 343. I finally got the results of the traps finally. Then I worked my first aid skills. So, in part 6 or 7 of Predz's 1000 Day series, he showed off an effective way to level up first aid skills. So get some shattered glass and walk over with no shoes on. This will give you a deep wound in both feet with the large glass shards. And you can taking it out with tweezers to your heart's content. And I was going to do exactly that. But then I remembered I had the immersive medicine mod. I ended up getting an increased heartbeat and tiredness from losing blood. And not wanting to die from blood loss, I only did this till I got level 4 first aid, then I stopped and healed up. I recovered the rest of the day by reading volume 3 of first aid. I will be continuing doing this trick, by the way. Day 344. After recovering and wrapping up volume 3 of first aid, I went back to the first aid grind. I ended up stopping when I got a cloudy vision reroll. The only issue with doing this technique with immersive medicine mod installed is after a first aid session, I have to wait a few days to fully recover from blood loss since I would always be tired and exerted with the amount of blood loss from my body. Days 345 and 46 were spent recovering. In the span, I checked traps, fished, and worked in the garden while sleeping every chance I got to speed up the days. Day 347, after recovering, I spent time working on foraging. I didn't find much to level up, so I went home and worked on patching my clothes. Day 348, I didn't do much really. I took a drive in the Mustang looking for some freezers. I ended up, at the end, working on first aid again, gaining level 5 and half of level 6 before tapping out before I would die of blood loss. 9 and 50 were spent recovering, but after recovering on day 350, I geared up what would be possibly the most insane trip I would do so far in Project Zomboid. I brought the bus and went on my way. I left at 2 p.m. after gearing up and made it to my destination at 5 p.m., which was the Grand Ohio Mall. Possibly the biggest building in Project Zomboid history, and Pretz's Louisville base from parts 3 to 4. This is going to be a fucking doozy. I spent the entire evening clearing out the parking lot with a katana. I brought 3 katanas with me, alongside an AKM, my Saga, and not to mention the Glock 34 I had in my holster for the trip, with plenty of ammo for the hordes that I will be dealing with tomorrow. Day 351, I woke up in between a rock and a hard place with a small group surrounding the rear end of the trailer I slept in. But today was a day where all hell would break loose. I opened the doors of the mall and started doing what I do best.
Eventually, you may end up crossing the line to fully understand that your ass is on your own. Believe me, I don't judge you just because of what you do. So don't judge me on things I'd rather not do. It ain't easy trying not to fit it. Lost touch to a few close ones cause I didn't give in. Courageous, with your life for it, know it feels like gotta fight for my right to be who I really wanna be. It's hard under pressure, any type, so the justice don't matter to aggressors. But I will not fall apart, but I won't cave in, even though I keep on walking alone. Even believe in myself, my faith can't take my soul now. life not to just exist. Gonna get my rights, so I fight back and resist. They wanna do it like they want me, make another me like cloning. Only little do they know me, you can never hold me. Felt as if I was drowning in the water. The blade of pressure hits me, got my mind slaughtered. And I kept on shaking, telling myself that I'm so much stronger than before, so much stronger. Nothing is promised, nothing is flawless. Everything's a contest, so I gotta take a shot. I will not take a swap from any spot, cause I got to fight back, or else just gonna be back to who I was. Beat me, I don't stop for a reason, that means gonna beat me. Determined not to surrender under any circumstances. Over my dead body is the only chances. Eventually, you may end up crossing a line to fully understand that your ass is on your own. Believe me, I don't judge you. Just
Day 352. After sleeping in the mall gun store, I began looting the mall. I did so much work in the mall, and I was surprised there wasn't more afterwards. With the mall pretty much cleaned out, maybe, I went on my way and arrived to what I thought was a skating rink. After clearing it and getting inside, I realized it was anything but a skating rink. And so I decided to find my contenders who were after my championship title, Best Project Zomboid Survivor. After the massive carnage, I went back home and dropped off my stuff once again. Day 353 was spent wrapping up Volume 3 of Trapping and began reading Volume 5 Longblade. Day 354, I went up clearing the neighborhood and anywhere else using a spear. For this part, I was using a spike pole, which did the job, but I found I kept getting exerted more often while swinging this thing around. I had max fitness, and I wasn't overweight, so I assumed it was the pike doing the work. Day 355 was back on the first aid grinds. After hitting level 6, I patched up and discovered that I didn't have Volume 4 first aid. That will be on the agenda for when I recovered. In the meantime, I harvest crops and meal prepped. Day 356, it hasn't even been a week yet, but we're heading back to the mall. I want to get any missing magazines and books I needed before dipping out. Then I grabbed my electricity skill at the electronics store, and wherever radios, TVs, and other stuff I could break down was in, and finally found a magazine that allowed me to craft makeshift radios. So I knew what I was going to do with all the excess electronics parts I had back at base. Day 357, I took the propane tanks from the barbecue shop and went on my way. I had plans to finally max out my metalworking skill and work on upgrading my bus and jeep at the same time, which ended up being dismantling vehicles in parking lots and car wrecks. By doing this, I'm eliminating a car from the world, but I'm gaining a lot of metal bars, and metal pipes included, so I'd be able to craft more protection from these cars alone. Day 358 was spent completely dismantling vehicles and crafting vehicle protection for the bus and the jeep. Day 359, I spent the early mornings wrapping up Volume 4 First Aid and working on the garden to give myself a break from taking down cars. I ended up focusing on growing potatoes, strawberries, cabbages, carrots, and tomatoes for some reason, instead of having a more diverse vegetable farm. Literally, I don't know why I focused on these 5 things, but I just did it anyway. Day 360. I spent the morning taking down cars from metal, but for heavy duty cars I take the batteries out so I can use them as solar batteries for the base, and finally max out the metalworking skill while making vehicle protection, making it 11 skills maxed out so far. Being done with that, I fished the area dry and worked on tailoring for the rest of the night. Okay, we came across a problem. At this point, I realized I hit an entire year in game, which one is completely crazy to think about, since I made this goal of surviving an entire year in this game after getting back into it last year after buying my PC. So every time I made a playthrough, this would always be my goal, survive one whole year. But moving on, it's day 360, not 365. So you might think I fucked up in my counting, right? Well, here's the thing. I didn't. Okay. So there is the idea I messed up counting, but let's get into some math, okay? About a month of Project Zomboid survival time is 30 days, right? So after every time 30 days is hit with a character, it changes it from 29 days, and then 30 days becomes 1 month. So after doing some calculations, 12 months, which is 30 days, equals the 360 days survived. Now, I'm throwing the laws of the real world out here, where some months have like 31 days and such, but that's how the game tracks surviving time in months. 30 Project Zomboid days is 1 month. Therefore, if I'm right, I haven't survived the entire year yet. But we're going on with this. Okay? Writing this, I realize I gotta record a few more days, Lamau, but I'll get the rest of the script written before I resume recording. I hope this makes sense to you. If not, I'm sorry, but to sum it up, the game is running my day counts. Plus, I've been very, very careful of monitoring my days. Let's move on. Day 361 was spent working on first aid again until my character grew tired. But I sleep for the remainder of the day to recover. There's not much for me to talk about on days I spent grinding first aid, so that's it. On a plus side, I did reach level 7 first aid though. Day 362, after sleeping the morning away, I went back to dismantling cars for metal. Nothing else happened, so let's go to the next day. Hey guys, post-editing here, I realized I completely skipped over the real day 363. So much for me keeping accurate track of the days past. At least I caught it now. For the rest of this video, just keep an eye down at the total days instead of my script, because I completely messed up on counting the days. I missed 1 day, so I'm gonna be 1 day ahead on my script than any other day. Also, this also means I realized that I actually ended the video on day 401 instead of day 400. Okay, so let me explain what happened on the real day 363. It seems like I did go to the racetracks and just slaughtered some groups with a spear before heading home after getting tired and I guess doing some other chores. Sorry for the confusion, back to the video. Day 363. I decided to enter the horse race stalls for some zombies to kill. At the end, I hotwired a convertible and went for a joyride looking for another auto-start car to soup up. Day 364. I decided to drive back to the mall for a car hunt, and I ended up right on the money. I found a Dodge Sabre, or Dodge Sabre, I don't know what the fuck this car is called, I forget to this day. It ended up having a charged battery, which was surprising considering the condition the car was in. So, I ditched the convertible and drove this thing back home. This would be my next car to mod up. Also, I brought a Harley back home with me. The thing was janky as ever to tow back home. Day 365 was spent joyriding the bike, breaking down more cars in the parking lot, crafting protection, and cutting myself. Also, now we survived a year. Moving on. Day 366 to 367 was spent recovering by napping, spearfishing, and going back at it again on day 367 after recovering a bit. And then I finally reached level 8 first aid and began tackling on the final volume of first aid. Day 368, after finishing up the final volume of first aid, I harvested my crops and dug furrows and spearfish till nightfall. Day 369, after a few groups made their way around the gas station I planned to use as an outpost. So along the way, I blew the horn and went to town on the zombies I grouped up into a horde. After I got home, I planted more seeds to be used as bait for when I would get back into trying to level my trapping skills. Day 370, I want to pound out the rest of first aid, so I went back at it again and stood on shattered glass while rewatching Predz's 1000-day playlist for the 1 billionth time while recording this video. Day 371, it was raining now, so I harvested what I could and planted more vegetables. And then I ended up sleeping for the rest of the day. Day 372 was back pounding first aid again, and I ended up reaching level 9 before pussying out once again. Day 373, I slept through the entire day before deciding to throw in the towel and suffer a bit more to finally max out my first aid skill. It's crazy to think that 30 days ago I only had level 3 first aid with all the scratches and lacerations I got up to that point, and now I've used a cheese trick to max it out in no time flat. Now, let's focus on some more skills to grind up. Day 374 to days 375 were spent spearfishing while waiting to recover from my blood loss. Day 376, I finally recovered, so I took out 2 katanas, a spike bat, and a halberd spear, and drove around the city looking for hordes to clear. Day 377 was more of the same as yesterday, except I throw in some tailoring in the mix. After hitting level 4 tailoring, I drove it to the post office where there was a shit ton of books inside. After taking the next few volumes of tailoring, I dipped back home and read volume 3 tailoring for the rest of the night. Now, I don't have an easy way to grind this skill like I said before, but I do have an idea that would solve this solution. Day 378, after wrapping up the book, I went out exploring again before spearfishing to end the day off. Day 379 was spent making protection for the saber. Then I took the Jeep back to the gas station, and with a spare generator, so I can finally start having a good gas supply. Also, the place was infested again, so as per usual I went handle the zombies. Also, I forget when, but sometime around days 320 to 340, I ended up maxing out aiming. Sorry for that. After clearing them out, I hooked up the generator and finally had a gas station for the first time in nearly 200 days. Also, I dipped home, by the way. Day 380. A horde appeared next to the traps I placed, so I dealt with them in the meantime. My main focus for the day, the horde stuff was a side quest, was to grab more military crates and loggers for the weapon storage. After grabbing some more, I went back home, placed them down, and began reorganizing the armory. I had guns in the 2 lockers on the left side of the base, ammo in the middle, magazines and attachments on the far right side of the lockers, and melee weapons would be thrown into crates. After organizing, I sat down at the edge of water, mimicking, unintentionally, what Predz did in 400 Days, where he reflected on life while on the water's edge. Day 381, I went out in search of hordes to both take down and strip clothing of so I can use it for tailoring experience. After doing this to many dead hordes, I got queasy and left the vicinity before I caught a fever and started pounding out more tailoring experience. Day 382 was entirely spent plugging away at tailoring. I ended up getting level 5 tailoring and half of level 6 by the time I was finished for the night. Day 383, I worked on more tailoring until I got bored or ran out of thread, and harvested about 100 plus potatoes, which I chucked in the freezers. Also, while working on spearfishing, the fish I caught would be sent to the composter to be turned to fertilizer since I had an abundant amount of fish in my freezers. Other than that, there wasn't much else done. Day 384, I got the satchel full of corn, cabbages, and carrots that I couldn't hold into anything in the base anymore, and decided to use them as bait. Only problem was the amount of zombies that were in the tree lines near the traps I placed, so I spammed Q and utilized police force against them, then spent till night ripping off the clothes from the dead before I got queasy and was forced to head home, where I would spend the night sorting through the thread and working on tailoring again. Day 385, I woke up late, and after checking the traps, I spent the day tailoring. So to effectively grind tailoring, I took a leather jacket where it has a waistline, and sewn fabric on it and unsewn it until I either ran out of fabric, thread, or went to bed. But usually it either ended up with me running out of fabric, I mean thread, not fabric, or going to bed. Days 386 to 388 were spent doing the same task of checking traps, gardening, and tailoring. Day 389, after getting more thread, I installed a mod where you make your own clothing, the Yaki's clothing mod. Like, there was like some like caveman stuff, some medieval stuff, some like sheet stuff, a bunch of other stuff. There was also a thing with dyes too, and I really wanted to make a nice tunic, but I wanted to dye it red, and I didn't have red dye or anything to make red dye. I decided to throw that plan in the back burner and went back with grind up tailoring. Oh, and by the way, I have level 7 tailoring, and honestly, I doubt I max out by day 400. But it might be possible the rest of the days I have to record afterwards, since I still have like a few days left to record. Day 390 was entirely tailoring focused. Day 391, I went out for the search of a barbershop for dye. I found one in the middle of town, but it was rigged with an alarm. So in a panic, I grabbed what I could and cleared the horde to my bike and fucked off back home. Day 392, I did some meal prepping and went back at it again with tailoring grinds until I reached level 8. Upon reaching level 8, I decided to read the final volume of tailoring, and I spent until 4 AM at night because I wanted to brush my teeth and get ready for bed while my character was reading. Day 393 was entirely spent on tailoring once again. Day 394. So this was the point where I thought I wrapped up on 400 days and began recording the outro. Unfortunately for me, I had to pick up after this and record another couple hours to finally reach day 40. So, if you excuse me, I'll be writing this again when I wrap up the rest of the gameplay footage for real. So, rewriting the script on day 394, after realizing I fucked up, I went back to my daily routine of checking traps and working on tailoring. 395, I realized there's a barbershop nearby the base, so I went there and tried looking for red dye. I didn't find any red dye, so I went back to the hair salon I triggered the alarm to and tried to beat the everlasting shit out of the large horde accumulated on that day. I eventually got back inside and grabbed a bottle of red dye and fled back home and made the dyed tunic. Day 396, after running out of thread, I harvested a total of 51 potatoes, 18 strawberries, and 153 tomatoes, and threw them in the freezers while I chowed down on strawberries to cure my depression. This ended up taking until late afternoon, where I ended up checking traps at 5 PM instead of early in the morning like I normally do. Getting home, I meal prepped some soups and stews before passing out. Day 397, I went back to the parking lot to take down heavy-duty cars and take their batteries while I was at it. Then I worked on tailoring before running out of thread again, and I went out looking for hordes to clear. So during this section, I paused my recording on OBS because my brother and my friend came back home while getting food, and when I replayed, I forgot to hit unpause on OBS. So I'm actually writing this part while I'm still recording this day. So here's what happened. I went ahead and went to the gas station and filled my saber. After that, I cleared a horde down by the news station and went back home to work on tailoring. Day 398, I got level 9 tailoring in the morning and continued plugging away at it again, determined to max it before the end of these 100 days. Also, I forgot to eat for the entire day, so I gulped down several bowls of soup and stews before going to bed that night. Day 399, after running out of thread once again, I went out in search of hordes and electronics nearby so I could level up electricity before day 400. I got a bright idea to blare the horn next to the soccer field and ended up driving a horde to my vicinity. Y'all know the drill at this point. On a plus side, I got 140 piles of thread from ripping off the clothes of the zombie hordes. I began compiling them to make an entire roll of thread, and basically spent a late at night working on tailoring. I document day 400, but the only thing I did was boil a water jug and use it to clean up all the dirty rags and strips I collected from ripping the clothes off the dead zombies. And I now finally recorded the outro. Here it is. And here we are again. 400 days. And honestly, I never thought I'd make it this far in Project Zomboid. Louisville was a blast, and I really enjoyed my stay in the biggest city in Project Zomboid. There's literally so much to check out, so many POIs to look for, and on top of that, I didn't even see everything in the city yet. I feel the focus of this episode was a mix of exploration, skill grinds, and combat as I maxed out several skills in this episode. As of last part, I feel like I didn't really skill grind much in Muldrow. I know for certain I'd be able to max out sneaking and tailoring in the 500 days, but the other skills would need some time to put some work into. I'd like to level up fishing some more, but even with being by a lake for these 100 days, I think I only leveled up once, and I'm a bit worried about leveling up fishing before the update comes out where there's actually a minigame with fishing, like they did with the foraging fix. But it will be a bridge I burn when I get there. I don't really have any specific plans for 500 days yet, but we all know I probably would find something interesting to do. So I guess we'll leave it at that. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Sorry this took a while to release. Don't forget to check out Predz 1000-Day playlist down below. Also, after finishing up this script, I watched Part 9, and I can't believe Part 10 is going to be right around the corner after so many months of a series in the works. I'd say more, but I've been talking too much and delaying the outro. As always, I still got the main editing to do and background music add in, so I'll just leave it here. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, lads.